Hi, my name is LaRonda Julian. Welcome to the IEEE Women in STEM Engineering Podcast. We rise together, charting pathways to STEM careers where we share leadership insights, career advancement strategies, and innovative technology topics. One objective of IEEE's strategic plan is to empower technology professionals in their careers through ongoing education, mentoring, networking, and lifelong engagement. When I think about a financial plan, to me, it just does what the name says. It encompasses all of the financial decisions that you would make, from cost to educate yourself or your kids, having someone like a mentor to guide you in building your plan, asking people in your network for a referral based on their experience and goals, and deciding what you need to do today to make all of your dreams for reality tomorrow. And that's just to name a few based on my experience. Our guest today is Caroline Tanis from Tanis Financial Group, and she is going to help us decipher all things financial planning. Welcome to the show, Caroline.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a beautifully written and spoken intro, so I appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Carolyn, can you talk about how you, as you described it, became obsessed with financial planning and financial empowerment after realizing how little we as women are taught about this topic? Maybe pinpoint a story or some other moment that you can share related to that.
It's so many different moments that I've seen throughout working with clients, talking to, I would say, women from every stage of their life, whether they are recent college grads or have retired and are towards the end of their life and sharing amazing stories. And it really comes down to, we spend so much time, especially as women, talking about the gender pay gap. But I don't think what gets enough time and attention is the gender wealth gap. And that is where a lot of financial planning conversations come into play for me, because so many of the things as women that we have been able to do in order to build wealth are abilities that have only come into play recently. Like, we couldn't get credit cards as women until the 1960s, which is, first, we know how many people that were born in the 1960s, 1950s that didn't have that ability when they were first, born. Granted, they had to be 18 or, older to get that credit card, but still, to think that that's not far removed from our lifetime, and that compounded into what is the gender wealth gap. And I'll break that down, which is, it is the compound effect of a couple different things. Yes, it's the gender pay gap that we see. Yes, it's the fact that as women, we tend to hoard cash. However, we actually, as women, make better investors when we do invest, studies show. But a lot of men are more open to having these conversations. And so as women, we hoard cash because we are the caretakers. And sometimes we're nervous and timid about, okay, where should we invest? What should we be doing? And that's where it comes back to this financial plan, because I have so many women that will come either into my office or into a Zoom room, and they'll say, I met with this other wealth advisor and they won't speak to me without my husband. And I'm like, this is not the 1960s anymore. It's not back in the day. In order for us to build wealth and to close that gender wealth gap, we need to be having these conversations and building these plans, which is why I'm so excited to always be talking about this, being on a podcast like this, where we can empower more women and open up more of these conversations around financial planning.
I love that explanation of it. I think it's perfect because you started to allude to how financial plans look different, not just among genders, but also across generations. You went back to the 60s and you brought it all the way back to now. I think that that's so important for people to understand because it gives you a little bit better of a picture about why people are apprehensive, specifically women, about investing. Now, your clientele primarily consists of high performing women. What is maybe one challenge that you observe when you're making a plan for different professions?
That's a great question. I will say it is, I'm going to break it down into two parts, if that's okay. The
Mhm.
first thing I see across so many powerful, ambitious women in general is back to what I said before, where there's a lot of advisors that sit there and say, well, I want your husband in the conversation. Well, who's the real decision maker? And I had one client in particular, she was working at a Fortune 500 company. She was the breadwinner of her family. And the advisor she had previously met with said to her, I'm not meeting without your husband. And she said to me, little does this man know, unfortunately, the reality of my situation is that my husband is the overspender in our family. He's the one that is the reason that we're having a hard time creating a financial plan and sticking with it. And I'm the breadwinner of our family, and he hasn't been able to work in over a decade. And that's the reality of so many different situations that I see is women are so underestimated in what they can do. And I will say across different, which is the part two of this, across different industries, I have a lot of women that will come to me who work, especially in male dominated industries, whether it's STEM, law, medicine, even a lot of like the trades as well. I have a lot of women come to me because there's a lot of or I'll say there's a fear and there's the lack of the conversations around money and them being able to ask questions in the workplace and a lot of these things that have happened once again over generations where they want to do well for themselves. They know that the men are talking about retirement. They know that they are sitting down trying to max out 401ks, figure out their strategies, and they want to be able to do the same and find a safe place where they can do it. And regardless of what industry we are in, or my clients are in, it's all the common goal of wanting not even necessarily like financial freedom, I think has become too much of a buzzword and has lost meaning, but it's financial understanding and figuring out the path and the clarity and the way forward of when can I retire? When can I, buy a home, a second home? When can I, go on vacation and take that trip of a lifetime? It's those simple things that so many women, regardless of industry, want clarification on.
That's great. And you talked about how sometimes it is the woman who is the breadwinner in the family working through some issues that maybe were not expected. We both know that life happens. And I see that you are a certified divorce financial analyst. Can you talk about how those different life events impact a financial plan and how we can best prepare for it?
It's hard because it's always the events that we don't prepare for. And to some extent you can't, right? That's just part of life, whether it's a divorce, whether it's I've even unfortunately had clients that have lost a child or lost a parent way too soon. And especially as women, the another big piece of the gender wealth gap that we see is as women, we're the default caregivers for everyone. And especially now with the longevity that we are seeing in in the baby boomer generation, it's really adding to us because now we have the sandwich generation that exists, which for those who might not be as familiar, it's when you're taking care of your parents and you are then sandwiched in between, and you also have young kids that you are taking care of, whether it's financially, emotionally, physically, maybe a combination of all of those. It really adds into that because a lot of times that's a life event that people don't plan and prepare for. I've had a lot of conversations with women recently who sit here and say, yeah, I'm going to be financially responsible for my parent or for a spouse's parent or parents. So not only are you now preparing for your own retirement, having to support someone else in their retirement and healthcare expenses while trying to raise kids, manage a career. It is so much and it is so heavy. And it's also really lonely. And that's, I think, the piece that so many people forget about is it feels so siloed, and it's like I will go from conversation to conversation throughout the day of people going through these monumental life events, and they always think they're so alone. And I'm like, if you look around, I wish people could have like bubbles over their heads that were transparent and say like, here's what you're going through, because we would realize how much more in common we have with each other and how much more grace everyone needs, especially when it comes to money and how we are reacting to everything going on financially.
I love that you said that women are primarily and traditionally seen as the caregivers. And it based on your description, seems like, yes, we were once seen as the caregivers for our families, but it was more in a physical sense. And now we're having to extend that reach into the financial realm. Well, then we've got to worry about, can I go back to school? Maybe I want to start a business. Maybe I have kids, maybe I don't. Maybe the kids are going out and I'm going to be an empty nester. Maybe I'm approaching retirement. Am I going to go sunning at the beach, or, am I going to be out at the lake with my husband with a fishing pole? It just looks so differently throughout the years. And yes, when you throw in those unexpected events, it totally changes things.
You raised such a good point that I want to touch on for a second, if it's okay, is it looks so different. And I think that's the hardest thing that so many women are especially going through right now, especially once again, women who are in STEM, medical fields, lawyers, where they are in very demanding jobs and roles. And also now there's no roadmap for so much of this. And there are so many of those questions of, okay, how, number one, how do I manage all of this? Once again, emotionally, physically, but also financially. And that's where it comes back to, creating a plan. And it's going to change. And I say this to everyone because life events will happen. And there is no, a lot of the things people come to, they'll say to me, well, my parents, they retired at 62 or 65. They took their Social Security. They retired for 5 years, 10 years, and, went off into the sunset. And that's just not the way things are shaping up to be anymore. And I think to some extent, especially as women, we are in uncharted territory. We have so many options, which is amazing and empowering and can also be really overwhelming. So I hope that anyone listening to this knows that, once again, they are not alone in any of the emotions that they are feeling navigating all of this.
Let's maybe take the conversation up a notch. You've got your financial plan. What about preparing to leave a legacy?
The first thing when we talk about leaving a legacy is I actually have people step back a second because once again, legacy is becoming a buzzword. What does legacy mean though to you? Is legacy, and I would say one of the biggest shifts I'm also seeing now is especially because people are living longer. I have a lot of my older clients where it used to be, okay, I want to leave money behind. What kind of inheritance can we do? What is that going to look like? I'm also seeing a really big shift for people in terms of how are we spending this money intentionally during our lifetimes? Is it, taking trips with kids and grandkids? Is it, being able to be there? And if people become snowbirds, are they making time in their day and also financially to come back and visit and spend time with each other and really be present? And that's where I'm seeing a big shift in the terms of legacy. It's becoming, yes, there's the financial piece to it, and we want to be able to have these experiences with each other, but it's more experiential. The other piece of legacy I'm also starting to see is rather than leaving money to family and, exorbitant amounts, it's also how are we giving back? And so it looks, even if it's $100, $500, $5,000, whatever it might be for you, what are the causes and organizations that you care about? What are the things that really mean the most to you? And the biggest piece when it comes to leaving a legacy, because very few of us will die with exactly $0 in our bank account. And so there is a level of planning we need to do for that. And it's essential and really important. But the idea is that you need to be doing the planning. And as we've experienced, unfortunately, during the pandemic, it can look at a different point for anybody because we don't have a magic ball that says, like, hey, here's exactly the day that you're going to leave this earth. But it's about planning, having the thoughtful conversations, right? Not just saying, like, oh, if I die, the kids can have the money. What does that mean? Like, what is your hope for them? One of my favorite things that I've done in my own personal estate planning and legacy planning is I actually wrote anybody that inherits money from me. I wrote letters to them. Obviously, I hope they don't read them for a very long time. And it's something I encourage all of my clients to because if they do end up inheriting, I've seen clients that pass away within a year of retiring. Unfortunately, it happens. And so the kids do inherit a good amount of money. By kids, I mean like grown adults, usually. And so I'm like, write them a letter, right? What are the things that you want them to know or to intentionally do with this money? You can do it from a standpoint of setting up a trust. You can also do it from writing a letter and really sharing your intentions, which is very therapeutic, I found when I did it for myself as well.
I love that idea of writing a letter. You hit on a couple more things that I also want you to share more about. You talked about inheritance. And one thing people may not be familiar with is inheritance taxes. Do you coach your clients on tax implications of their financial planning?
Yeah, and it comes from both sides of the coin. And by that, I mean, I spend a lot of time sitting with clients on, okay, if you're passing money to a spouse, what type of assets are you passing to them? Here are the tax implications to that. That then changes, though, if you are leaving things behind to a child or somebody who really just honestly isn't your spouse. That's a very different conversation because we've had changes in rules with the IRS on when you have to take certain amounts of money out. It's also strategically planning and saying, hey, what are changes that we should make during your lifetime for how we can intentionally spend money to leave the most behind to your children in a tax efficient manner. I know that it's not in the way of, okay, we want to just leave behind money to leave behind loads of money. It's how are we doing it in a tax efficient manner? Because there is a lot of strategy and a lot of conversations behind it. And I have seen, unfortunately, so many situations where it's usually like the adult children will come to me after and they'll say, I inherited this from my aunt, my uncle, my parents, whatever it might be. And it's heartbreaking because once you're gone, there's not as much that we can really do in terms of planning and strategy. And they're like, what do you mean I have to give how much of this up to the government and to taxes? And it's like, if only people had planned better and had these conversations, it can make a world of a difference.
Following up again on the previous comment you made, you mentioned trusts. I personally have a child who has special needs. And one of the things that I was advised about in financial planning was setting up a trust for him. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Explain to everybody what that is?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you have all of that done. It always makes me so happy to hear when people took the time to do their planning and protect their loved ones. So there's a couple different types of trusts that exist out there. We have a special needs trust, which is probably what you set up, which is a great vehicle in terms of protecting your assets, especially from whatever care they may need in the future. You also have two different other types of trusts, which are revocable and irrevocable trusts. Now, with a revocable trust, that's I would say it's the more common type that we see. When you pass away, a revocable trust becomes irrevocable because you're gone and you can't change anything. So a revocable trust, you can make changes to. You can change what is going into the trust. You can change how the trust is managed, who the trustee is. It has so much more flexibility. However, with that, it doesn't remove those assets from your personal being. And by that, I mean, if there's someone slips and falls on your property and you get sued, someone can go after that money. It's not protected from creditors, lawsuits, things like that. It also isn't removed in figuring out your total value of your estate. So that mainly comes into play for people who are over that annual or that lifetime estate bill that we see, which is in, let's see, it increases every year. So you have to check what it is for 2026, but it's usually in the upwards of like 14 or 15 million right now. So you've got some leeway if you're under that. You then have an irrevocable trust, which this one is, think of like an airtight box. If you are putting things in here, you have a lot less flexibility. Once things go in, it's almost like putting things in the box and they are gone. Not necessarily gone in the fact that you can never touch them again, but it depends how you set things up. Some people like to do this because they want things out of their estate. They want to reduce that estate tax bill. They want to protect from any creditors or liability, especially people who work in very with jobs with a high litigious rate where people might come after for lawsuits, whatever it might be, doctors, lawyers, things like that. They sometimes will go this route because they want the protection, they want things out of there. So that's kind of the overall. And I always tell people it's a great conversation to have with a couple different people to figure out what's the right fit for you based on number one, your goals for the money, and number two, where you really are in life at the moment and where you want to get to. Some people will, set up a revocable trust and then things change. And I'm like, well, we should have talked about this. And so it's a great conversation to have with both a financial advisor or wealth advisor and also the estate attorney. Have them work together because there's sometimes things that one will see that the other won't. And I love to always be on conversations and calls with clients' estate attorneys, and we can put our heads together and I'll be like, what are you seeing? And what are you seeing? Like, we do that back and forth and can really build something that's a little more comprehensive.
Thank you so much for explaining that.
Mhm.
You also mentioned that sometimes children might lose a parent.
Mm.
Do you teach finances to children or to your clients' children to kind of help them prepare for what might happen?
It's funny, one of my favorite things to give people when they have or clients when they first have a baby is there's a couple different books I like that I always send when they have a baby that are like different children's books on money. Because I think it is so important. It is such an undervalued skill. And I always try to sit with clients and make sure they are prepared in terms of from a legal standpoint, how are you setting things up should something happen to you? How are we protecting your child, which is a really hard conversation to have, especially if I have any new parents that are on with me. They can't imagine not being here for their child's life, which is one of the most heartbreaking things to think about. And I always have the conversation with them. Number one, on the downside of if you're not here, I want to make sure that this child is protected with people they love and is emotionally and financially set up and secure. And then some of the other things I love are being able to, send resources. I teach a workshop for some different organizations called Raising Financially Responsible Children. And I always encourage parents, I'm like, as much as you can talk about it and have open conversations, it's going to make such a difference. And I love when clients' kids go off to college and we get to start, doing, I'll call it softer financial planning. We'll talk about opening your first bank accounts or your, getting your power of attorney done because, hey, you're a grown adult now. Um, and so really getting it started and having great resources out there, I think is such a differentiator.
Tell us about some common money traps that people fall into.
Ooh, this is one of my favorites. I'm gonna touch on a couple social media ones that I see, if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, the one that I see is when people go all or nothing with money. And by that I mean, especially in the earlier months of the year, I see a lot of people that are like, I'm going to do a no spend month or a no spend quarter. All you're doing is then spending more money in one month. You're not really dealing with the problem. And then the following month, you're going to spend more money just to kind of cancel it out. And I think people like to do these all or nothing challenges. And I'm like, well, you're not facing whatever shopping problem is going on here. I'm like, why don't you instead be intentional and this is 100%, I give this credit to Tori Dunlap, has this from her first 100K. She encourages people to take a spreadsheet and every single thing that you buy, write down how much it was, what you bought, and how it made you feel when you purchased it. And I think being more mindful rather than going into this scarcity all or nothing is allowing you to face the problem, or not even necessarily, might not even be a problem. It might just be like, hey, let me look at this from an analytical standpoint and say, okay, is there even a problem here? Some people always like, I have a spending problem. I don't know what I spend. And I'm like, well, are you on track for your retirements, for your savings? let's step back and see maybe there's not always a problem. And I think that is another trap too, is we're always being told, especially as women, that we are overspenders, over consumers. And one of the biggest things that I tell clients is spend freely on the things that you love and save in the areas that you don't. And everyone sits down and they think, oh, great, a financial advisor. You're going to tell me I can't go buy coffee. You are preaching to the person that probably spends more money on coffee than you do, because it's the thing I love. I love being able to get a coffee. I live in New Jersey, and so being able to get a coffee on a Saturday morning in the summer and walk around a Jersey Shore town is one of the highlights for me of every summer. And doing that once a weekend. Sometimes I do it more than once a weekend, but like that's a thing that brings me joy. Um, I'm not a big movie person. So like I don't go out to the movies. I don't really watch a lot of TV or Netflix. I don't spend money on that. And I know that, and I don't have those subscriptions or passes or go just because like everyone tells you you should. And for me, I always encourage people like step back once again, see are we on track? You don't always need to know, did I spend $7.19 this morning at the grocery store and I, went this far over. Are you on track for everything you need to? Then it's okay. It's when we get into these, we feel like we need to be so nitpicky with everything going on. I think we all need to like take a deep breath is one of the big traps.
You've given us a lot of great tips and advice so far, and our audience is going to be so grateful for it. I'm going to ask you for one more.
Ready?
What would be one change that we could make today to help us to secure our financial future?
This is a great question. We all have that never ending to-do list. And by that, I mean it's as you're listening to this, and we probably talked about estate planning and legacy planning or doing a financial plan, there is something on there that is on your never ending to do list. Whether it's, oh man, yeah, I do need to update my estate plan. Oh, yeah, I really do need to get clear on what my financial future looks like. I encourage you to think about move that item from the never ending to do list, take an action. Is it, okay, I'm going to schedule time with an estate attorney? Is it, I'm going to, log in, do something as simple as log into my bank accounts and figure out where all of my money is? Is it, I need to go and take a look at my 401ks and get updated balances, make sure I'm maxing out in the way I want to, contributing to the accounts I want to? Is it, hey, I need to start a financial plan? Take one action on something that is on that never ending to-do list. And I will say that is one of the things when I'm working with clients, there is that accountability. Like there is people come to me and they'll be like, yeah, I've been meaning to do it, but like it just never gets done. And I'm like, great, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna do it right now. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do this right now. And we just check things off the list over and over and over again, because yes, it's the level of accountability. And we all know we should do it, but it's different when you have someone forcing you to do it. So I encourage you to figure out what is that one thing when you were listening today that popped into your head. Take action on it, whether it's scheduling the appointment, logging into accounts, reaching out to whoever you need to. Like this is your sign to take that one step.
Thank you so much. Now, we're going to talk just a little bit about you, if that's okay.
I love it.
You are a volunteer at Believe, Inspire, Grows Northern New Jersey Pod. And in my research, I found that it's a women's empowerment organization that offers women's inspiration, community, and the tools they need to move their lives forward, both personally and professionally. Can you tell us a little bit more about them and the work that they are doing to move women forward?
Yeah, so Big is an organization and they have stepped out all across different chapters, from New Jersey to Connecticut, now even down to Florida. And they have done a great job in terms of creating a community, I will say, of women from all different careers, aspects of life. all working towards different things, which I think is so refreshing, where it's nice to be in a place where we might all be so different, but you can still come together. And I've met some of my really good friends in that group. The woman who does she's amazing. Her name's Claire Wang. She does all of my photography. It always makes me feel so empowered and beautiful when I do things. I met her through that organization, and just some incredible people that I think are going to continue to do some amazing things.
That's great. Giving back is always so meaningful, and I think it's also empowering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, at your office, you also have someone who is head of security. His name is Chester. Tell us about Chester.
It's funny. Chester is every one of my clients' favorite employees, which is why he made it onto the website. So Chester is my 13-year-old dachshund. During the pandemic, he would actually like come onto the screen, and because for whatever reason, he had to walk across a Zoom screen. And all of my clients just fell in love with him because he is a cranky old man. He like knows how to open the fridge. He has to let you know he's there. So we joke now that he is the head of security, but all of my clients, when we get on Zoom, no one wants to know how I'm doing. They don't care. They don't care. They're like, "How's Chester?" I have clients that send me gifts for him, and like it is just so funny the way everyone, especially like people knew he existed pre-pandemic. They knew I was a proud dog mom, but whatever happened when they saw him, everyone just fell in love during the pandemic. When I put him on social media, everyone goes bonkers, and I'm like, I'm here too. Don't worry. Yeah.
That is great. Caroline, it has been a joy. Thank you so much for joining us today. Anything else that you would like to share with our audience that would kind of lead them into the right way of financial freedom?
Take baby steps. I know it's similar to what I kind of said with the, start taking one step, but you don't have to do everything in one day. Yes, take that one step and start moving the ball forward, but a lot of people think that you need to become a millionaire overnight, or build generational wealth overnight. Like, give yourself time and build things intentionally and truly in the way that you want them to. And the second thing I'll add as well is, as you are financially planning for your own life, going through this whole process, um, things will change, right? Life is meant to. Life has ebbs and flows. Not every day is going to be perfect. Do not give up on that. It doesn't mean that you're bad with money. It doesn't mean any of those things that I think as women we're so often told. And once again, you are not in this alone.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you so much for joining us on our IEEE Women in Engineering podcast. We rise together, charting pathways to STEM careers. We appreciate having you as our guest today, and thank you so much to all of our listeners. Have a good day.